Hi there, Dr. Avinash here. Let's talk about anti-Parkinsonian drugs. Now, what is Parkinsonism? This is an extrapyramidal motor disorder. It is characterized by rigidity, tremors, and decrease in movements, hypokinesia, plus other manifestations such as defective posture, the gait is not correct, they have a mask-like face, they have cyalloria. Cyalloria is excessive salivation, and dementia may or may not be there. The problem is, if not treated at the correct time, these symptoms will slowly progress over several years to a end stage disease in which the patient literally becomes rigid, unable to move, unable to breathe properly, and succumbs to chest infections and or embolism. Easy? Now, belladonna alkaloids, means atropinergic drugs, were once upon a time used for treating Parkinson's. Nobody knew why, but they tried. A major breakthrough happened when levodopa was found to produce dramatic improvement in cases of Parkinson's disease. And this was 10 years of research which proved that dopamine is present in the brain. If you give reserpine, it's a medicine, reserpine, it causes depletion of dopamine and many other monoamines. Reserpine causes motor deficit, which are like these, what we just spoke about, right? And not only that, dopa can reverse the motor defects produced by reserpine. And in patients who died of Parkinson's disease, when we check their corpus striatum, the part of the brain, striatum, we found that it was deficient in dopamine. So Parkinson's was proven to be a dopamine deficiency state, and levodopa was used to make good of this deficiency, which means people who used to take dopamine, levodopa actually, the dopamine levels in the brain used to rise, and as a result they used to become better. Now the question was, why give levodopa? Why not give dopamine directly? Dopamine cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, and hence it cannot be given simple. Now, many other levodopa potentiators and dopa agonists have been developed. They are used as adjuncts or alternatives to dopa, but none of them will alter the course of disease. They will only improve the quality of life for a few more years. That's it. Let's talk about levodopa first. This drug, if you don't know, you are mega screwed. You must know this. Levodopa has a specific salutary effect in Parkinson's disease. It is too good. Its efficacy exceeds all other drugs used alone. By itself, it cannot do anything. But it is actually the precursor of dopamine. So this is how things happen. When you give a dose of levodopa, 95% of that dose is decarboxylated in the peripheral tissue like the gut and the liver. And that forms dopamine. The dopamine thus formed is metabolized in the liver. And the remaining ones, whatever dopamine remains, acts on the heart, blood vessels, peripheral organs, and on chemoreceptor trigger zone. Only 1 to 2% of levodopa that we give actually crosses the blood-brain barrier, enters into the brain, where it is picked up by the surviving dopaminergic neurons, and that is converted into dopamine in those dopaminergic neurons and stored there and released as and when needed as a neurotransmitter. Simple. This is proven, okay? We have taken post-mortem samples from the striatum of people who were on levodopa and found that their dopamine content was higher than people who did not take dopamine and were suffering from Parkinson's disease. I hope what I said made sense. If not, ask me. I will be happy to help. Okay? And those patients who responded usually had a higher dopamine level as compared to those who did not respond or responded very poorly. See, as far as actions are concerned, CNS levodopa will not have any effect in normal individuals or in patients with any other neurological disease. The only improvement that happens is in patients suffering from Parkinson's disease. Hypokinesia and rigidity resolve first, then tremor goes away. And because of these three things, other symptoms such as posture, gait, handwriting, speech, facial expression, mood, self-care, interest in life, they are slowly and gradually normalized. Okay. Nearly complete recovery will happen early in the disease, but if the disease is advanced, then the recovery also will not be complete at all. This effect, where patient starts taking interest in himself, is described by patient or his relatives as a general alerting response. It seems that the grandfather, the grandmother who is suffering from Parkinson's disease has suddenly become more attentive, right? Now, sometimes this excitement, that alerting response becomes so much that the patient becomes frankly excited. It's literally frank psychosis, and embarrassingly disproportionate increase in sexual activity also has been noted. The dementia and all does not improve. Actually, by giving levodopa, psychiatric symptoms which were there previously, they just get enhanced. It kind of leads to emergence of psychiatric symptoms. Apart from this, in hepatic coma patients, we have tried using levodopa to produce a non-specific awakening effect. Simple. Its action on cardiovascular system is basically because of the peripherally formed dopamine, which is tachycardia causing action. Okay, this is because dopamine acts on the beta adrenergic receptors. Dopamine can stimulate vascular adrenergic receptors, but surprisingly, instead of seeing a rise in blood pressure, we get postural hypotension. Maybe it's a central action that is manifested. The excess dopamine and noradrenaline which is formed in the brain actually decreases the sympathetic outflow. So this is how probably there is a fall in blood pressure rather than a rise in blood pressure. The third action is on chemoreceptor trigger zone. Dopaminergic receptors present in this particular region, when stimulated by dopamine, will cause nausea and vomiting. See, the peripherally formed dopamine can easily reach the chemoreceptor trigger zone because at the CTZ there is poor blood-brain barrier. So whatever is in the blood can directly, come in contact with this center. Eventually tolerance will develop, but still it's there. Now remember, in quite a number of chapters till now, I have been telling you dopamine is prolactin inhibiting hormone, right? So when you give levodopa, what will happen is this inhibition of prolactin release, and by acting on the somatotrophs, there will be increase in growth hormone release. Okay, most of the time we do notice that there is a fall in prolactin level during levodopa therapy, but that increased GH level, though theoretically possible, is not really noted that much. Maybe the mechanisms regulated growth hormone secretions are altered in the patients. We don't have to do pharmacokinetics. Okay, the only thing that you have to do is, if you give it empty stomach, levodopa is degraded better in the gut wall and in the liver, and as a result lesser will be available to cross the blood-brain barrier. You should directly jump onto adverse effects then. The side effects are frequent and quite troublesome. Most of them are dose related but usually reversible, and this is usually at the start of the therapy. Most of the time, some can happen at the end of the therapy also, like later on. So at the start of therapy, you start at the minimum dose and you increase the dose later on, then these side effects will not be that prominent. Side effects include nausea and vomiting. We just spoke about how the drug, the peripherally formed dopamine, can act on the chemoreceptor trigger zone because of the poor blood-brain barrier in that region, and we also spoke about how tolerance will develop to that. Second is postural hypotension. In 1/3 patient, this becomes a thing, but mostly asymptomatic. Like apart from a little dizziness and some fainting attacks, nothing much happens. So imagine a patient, because these are elderly, right? So you can think about a patient who is having antihypertensive medications plus getting levodopa. then the combination might be more troublesome, then the postural hypotension might be more. But continue using it and the BP will become normal again. And because of the peripheral beta adrenergic action, there can be cardiac arrhythmias and exacerbation of angina, and lastly there is altered taste sensation. After prolonged therapy, the following side effects appear. Three main ones. First one is called as abnormal movements or dyskinesia, where the patient has facial tics, abnormal contractions of muscles of the face, grimace, tongue thrusting, choreo-orthotoid movements of the limb. They happen after a few months of use of levodopa at optimum dose. This will worsen with time and all patients will get it after a few years. The dopa level that you're giving and the amount of dyskinesia matches. Okay, so the higher the doses, the more is the dyskinesia. No tolerance develops to this particular action. But if you reduce the dose a little bit, the severity will decrease. Okay, sometimes the disease Parkinsonism is as bad as the abnormal. Let me put it in another way. The side effect dyskinesia sometimes become as worse as Parkinson's disease the patient was suffering. So there is a limit to how much we can give levodopa. The second is behavioral effect. Many people get anxiety, nightmares, severe depression, mania, hallucinations, mental confusions, or even frank psychosis. This is because of dopamine's action in limbic system. Okay. Remember, anti-dopaminergic drugs are antipsychotics. The ones acting on D2 receptor, they were antipsychotics. So this is psychotic, right? So don't give it to patients who are already psychotic. And lastly, there is something called as on-off effect and something called as end of dose deterioration. Okay. After 2 to 5 years of therapy, the level of control starts showing fluctuation. This is called as end of dose deterioration. This happens when the level of levodopa in the blood starts to go down. So imagine you have given levodopa 2 times a day or 3 times a day, whatever, 2 times a day. So 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the evening. So till like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the evening, there is sufficient amount of levodopa in the blood. After that, the levels are going to fall down, right? That's the reason why we are giving it again at 8 o'clock in the night. This is just an example to make you understand, okay? We are not giving at 8 o'clock, but get the point clear. So after 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, the level of blood or plasma levels of levodopa is so low that the patient literally develops signs of Parkinson's disease. And then at evening 8 o'clock, the moment he takes another tablet of levodopa, all these symptoms are gone. This is called as rapid switches or on-off effect. Okay, with time, either the patient is 100% fine or absolutely not fine. So it's well and disabled. Okay, and these dyskinesias, they will even damage that on phase. So it's nothing we can do. It's like a progression of disorder. Okay, maybe the degeneration of dopaminergic neurons have become so much that even this extra dopamine is not helping. Simple. Divide the dose in more number of fractions. Like instead of giving 2 times a day, give 4 times a day. You might just be able to remove these problems. Okay, so these are the adverse effects. They ask these adverse effects specifically. Please have a look at them. And as far as interactions go, I want you to remember the first one only. Pyridoxine abolishes therapeutic effect of levodopa, because pyridoxine enhances peripheral decarboxylation. If all the levodopa is decarboxylated in the periphery, there will be nothing left for the brain to use, right? The brain has to convert levodopa into dopamine. If everything is being converted by periphery into dopamine, then how will the brain use? Hence, be careful. Okay. Now, the biggest problem we noticed was 95% of levodopa was converted to dopamine by the peripheral tissue by enzymes called as decarboxylase. Why not make an inhibitor of these decarboxylase? 95% levodopa will be saved, right? 2 of them, carbidopa and benzaradine. These are extracerebral or peripheral decarboxylase inhibitor. They do not penetrate the blood-brain barrier. They do not act on the brain's ability to convert levodopa to dopamine. Okay, so you give them in combination with levodopa. What will happen? One, the T half will get prolonged, right? Levodopa will be available for a longer period of time. What was being destroyed is now not destroyed. Secondly, the dose will become 1/4. Isn't that good? Third, because peripherally levodopa is not getting converted to dopamine, the concentration of dopamine in the systemic circulation reduces. So the nausea and vomiting decrease, and you get better, brain levels. Cardiac complications will go down. The pyridoxine reversal of levodopa effect does not occur because the peripheral action is what we are blocking, right, by giving carbidopa and benserazide. Simple. The on-off effect is minimized, plus the degree of improvement might slightly be higher, especially in those who are not responding adequately to levodopa alone will definitely improve. See, involuntary movements, behavioral abnormalities and the sleepiness might not go away. Even postural hypotension may not get resolved. They might actually become worse. But let's just look at the benefit of this combination. That's the reason why they ask you this question. What is the combination of levodopa, carbidopa, also known as co-careldopa, a rational combination? Give these 6-7 points and tell how beautiful this drug is. Simple. So this combination is going to be a rational combination. Please remember that. Easy peasy. Now these are the two most important drugs to be done from this chapter. I would recommend you do these two properly first. Then you can think about MAO-B inhibitor, selegiline, less important as compared to the previous two, and COMT inhibitor. They are never asked in your exam, so you can skip them for the time being. But now let us talk about the odd questions. We will be discussing 3: ropinirole pramipexole, MAO-B inhibitor selegiline, and COMT inhibitors entacapone and tolcapone. These are 3 things that we need to do extra. Let's start with the first one, shall we? Ropinirole and pramipexole. These are non-ergoline selective dopamine receptor 2 and dopamine receptor 3 agonist, and they don't work at D1 receptor or any non-dopaminergic receptor. They are very specific. These drugs, when you give to a patient of Parkinson's disease, they will go and attach to their D2 and D3 receptors. Out of these two, pramipexole has more affinity for D3 receptors. Okay, so what will happen? The dopamine receptors will be stimulated and the Parkinson's symptoms will decrease, right? See, Parkinson is because dopamine is not there, which means dopamine receptors are not being stimulated. Dopamine is not there, right? Give medicine which works like dopa. So they have good therapeutic effect, just like bromocriptine, the older medication. It was derived from ergot, but they are better tolerated. They have fewer GI symptoms. So you start with lowest possible one and do a dose titration, reach a maximum within 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, and that's that. Okay, some problems with behavioral side effects has been noted. So these drugs are not free of any side effect as such. They are used as monotherapy in early Parkinson's disease. They can be used to supplement levodopa carbidopa combinations, and they afford symptomatic relief just like levodopa. Okay, we have also noticed that dyskinesia and motor fluctuations are comparatively lower in these patients treated with ropinirole and pramipexole as compared to those with levodopa. Okay, so we also have seen that combination of levodopa carbidopa only works symptomatically. There is some evidence which shows that if you use ropinirole or pramipexole, it might slow the rate of neuronal degeneration. Okay, So what we are now thinking about is, instead of using levodopa, why not use these non-ergoline dopamine agonists? But at this point of time, yeah, we might be able to use them later on. At this point of time, they're supplementary drugs to levodopa. Okay. Directly jump to side effects: nausea, dizziness, hallucinations, and postural hypotension. And then there are those impulsive behaviors, like behavioral changes, impulsive shopping, betting, gambling, and that inappropriate sexual overactivity that has been observed. Okay. Overall, the psychiatric side effects will be more as compared to levodopa. Okay. Some people believe that ropinirole and pramipexole both increase the episodes of daytime sleep and hallucinations. That's the reason why we don't like it in elderly patients. Okay, and of course, once the patient gets this kind of side effects, we should advise the patient not to drive their cars. Okay. MCQ: ropinirole is approved for a condition called as restless leg syndrome. Remember this, please. Okay. Moving on to MAO-B inhibitor. If you recall, in some other chapter, we did reversible inhibitors of MAO-A, the antidepressants, right? This is MAO-B. Selective, irreversible, not reversible, irreversible MAO-B inhibitor. Remember, MAO-A and MAO-B are two important enzymes. MAO-A is the one responsible for breaking dopamine and many other monoamines. MAO-B is much more preferentially oriented in such a way that it oxidizes dopamine. Okay, so non-selective MAO inhibitors, compared to them, selegiline, even in low dose, will not interfere with metabolism of dietary amines and all. So no catecholamines will be formed in the blood, no hypertensive reaction. Only the intracerebral degradation of dopamine is retarded, which means that if dopamine is not retarded, it's available for more action, right? So this is how it might be working in Parkinson's disease. Of course, if you give in higher doses, then there will be hypertensive interactions with levodopa or with sympathomimetic amines. So don't give it in higher doses. That's the basic bottom line. Can it be used alone? Yes, in mild Parkinsonism, it can be. But most of the doctors prefer to administer it with levodopa. This way, the actions of levodopa will become prolonged, and that wearing off effect goes away. So motor fluctuations goes away, the wearing off effect is no longer there. So this means that if you give it with levodopa, the levodopa dose automatically has to be decreased by 20 to 30%. See, once the on-off effect and all have started, then you can't give this. Then it's like expecting too much. Okay, don't do that. Actually, if you give it in patients who already have these long-term complications, you might actually cause more harm than good. Now, there is a hypothesis which says that because of oxidation of dopamine by MAO or some environmental toxins in the striatum, they are destroyed by MAO and some free radicals are made. And these free radicals are actually destroying the dopaminergic neurons, and that is what is causing Parkinson's disease. By blocking MAO-B, selegiline might actually delay the progression of disease. Okay, but then many trials have been conducted and we have not seen any significant difference between lifespan of or the disease progression of patients who are treated with levodopa alone and with selegiline alone. So there's no such proof. Nevertheless, because we think it is neuroprotective, scientists tried finding out newer medications belonging to the same category, and rasagiline, another MAO inhibitor, is now in contention for this neuroprotective effect. What are the side effects? Postural hypertension, nausea, confusion, accentuation of increase of levodopa induced involuntary movements and psychosis can happen. Another problem is siligilene can be metabolized in the liver to form amphetamine, which will cause insomnia and agitation. So people who have convulsions and all, don't give it. At least remember these many side effects. Simple. Don't have to do rasagiline as such. Okay, that is not coming. Simple. Let's move on to the last one, the COMT inhibitors. COMT is an enzyme, catechol O-methyl transferase enzyme. I'm just scrolling back to a diagram given here to make you understand things better. If I have to make my levodopa work better, I need it to be available for use in the brain, right? If it is in the peripheral tissue, it will be broken down by two enzymes. One is called as DDC, dopamine decarboxylase, for which we had decarboxylase inhibitor, carbidopa benzerazide. And the second way by which levodopa in the periphery is broken down is COMT, an enzyme called as catechol O-methyl transferase. Here's the word. So if I can block this enzyme, catechol O-methyl transferase, and block DDC, then more levodopa will be available to enter into the brain. Then it will go into the correct dopaminergic neurons and it will get converted to dopamine, and dopamine will then do the necessary action. We spoke about MAO-B being one of the reasons why dopamine is broken down. And that's where siligilene came into picture. Block MAO-B so dopamine does not undergo destruction. But there's one more enzyme that can cause breakdown of levodopa and or dopamine. That enzyme is COMT, or catechol O-methyl transferase. So if we can somehow block these enzymes, then the levodopa or dopamine will not be broken down, which means dopamine will have more time to act at the postsynaptic receptor. That is exactly what we are aiming to do with these medications. The important ones are entacapone and tolcapone. The chances of COMT inhibitors coming in your exams are very less because they are actually adjuncts to levodopa carbidopa in advanced Parkinson's. So when the peripheral decarboxylation is blocked by carbidopa benzerazide combination, okay, a levodopa carbidopa or levodopa benzerazide combination, the only other enzyme remaining active is catechol O-methyl transferase, and that will break levodopa into 3-O-methyl dopa. You block this pathway by giving entacapone, tolcapone, the T half of levodopa will increase, so bigger fraction will enter into the brain. Okay, now this 3-O-methyl dopa might actually compete with levodopa for entry into the brain. So what normally might be happening is, in a patient who has only been given levodopa, that levodopa is broken away completely by dopamine decarboxylase. It is converted into 3-O-methyl dopa by catecholamine transferase. Okay, catechol O-methyl transferase, pardon me. And the product of that destruction, 3-O-methyl dopa, is still competing with our levodopa. But if I give entacapone, tolcapone, COMT is inhibited, COMT is inhibited, is equal to no 3-O-methyl dopa, which means there's no competition for levodopa now. So lowering 3-OMD levels will improve entry of levodopa in the brain. The good news is even breakdown of dopamine decarboxylase, dopamine in the brain will be prevented. Okay, so two actions, central actions as well as peripheral action. Entacapone acts only in the periphery because it has a pretty short T half, and tolcapone central action is less important. Both these drugs enhance and prolong the effect of levodopa carbidopa. They smoothen that wearing off, increase the on time, decrease the off time. And not only that, they improve the overall activity levels and allow more levodopa to go inside the brain, which means we can give lesser dose. Not for early Parkinson's disease. Some side effects like nausea, vomiting, dyskinesia, postural hypotension and hallucinations occur, but you adjust the levodopa dose, reduces by 20 to 30%, automatically these side effects stop. You please do this much from this chapter and you're through. I hope you have understood this. Go through this thoroughly. Questions will come. I hope to see you in another video. Till the next time we meet, this is Dr. Avinash signing off. Take care, keep studying and keep rocking. Bye bye.